Hey, welcome back to Swanson's Garage, everybody. Let's get right into it. I rounded up some materials. I'm not sure what I'm going to work on first here, but I'm just going to give you a rundown on some of the things that I have parts for. So, I got some new square bolts for mounting these throttle quadrants, so we're good to go there. I got some of these little drive rivets for mounting the little brass labels when that time comes, so we're good there. Lifetime supply of them. I got some stock for the new pivot pins. I got new little springs for inside of the handles that pushes on the plunger. New stock for new plungers. New stock for the little cross pin for the spring. New stock for making the little spring for the flippers. That pretty much takes care of this stuff. I did misspeak on these in a previous episode. I want to correct myself. I was saying these were different than every other tractor. I now believe, after a little further review, that that's not actually correct. I believe these are actually the same part as the 2035 long fender quadrants on like a 26. Some of the earlier tractors were different, but the ones that had this type of quadrant, I'm pretty sure this is actually the same part. I don't have one here to compare it side by side yet. We can do that in the future, but I'm pretty confident. The tags might say different things depending on what quadrant you're using or whatever, because obviously these two aren't even the same as each other because they're controlling different things on the same tractor. Anyway, I just wanted to correct myself there. So the only one that's actually different on the 1525 is the one for like the 26 there that I'm missing. That's different than these. It's like a mirror image of this. The ratchet is on the other side, and I do not have one of them, so I'm still trying to figure that out. So yeah, we're pretty much good there. We can continue with that project if we feel like it. I rounded up some stuff for the throttle butterflies. I got the new little oil light bushings to replace the ones in there. I got some, well, this I had on hand, I think will work for the new shaft for inside of the bushing. Like so. The spring wire for this is back ordered. That won't be here for like spring. That's back ordered for a long time. But we can continue with that project. I got the little drive rivets for the serial number tag on the firewall. There again, lifetime supply of them, because they are actually a different size than the ones for the throttle quadrant. We got some new screws to mount the lower dash. So once we run them through the sandblaster, that project will be ready to go. I got some more of these 90-degree ball and socket joints, another pair of them for the second governor. Now that I know I'm supposed to have that. I got some heavy hex nuts to mount them. I got some flathead countersunk rivets for the brake shoes. I ended up going with brass instead of copper because finding copper easily was almost impossible. Brass should work just the same. So we could work on that project anytime now. I also rounded up the brass to make the little tags and the little tiny end mill and the appropriate collet to put that little tiny end mill in our CNC router at work. So basically we're just waiting whenever my boss has time to write up a little program to do that. We will work on that project, but obviously that's not a high priority type of a project. So whenever he has time, we'll work on that project, but until now, I at least have materials. Well, I'm having a hard time focusing here today. Just bouncing around. I ended up getting some new bearings for the governors up at Napa. Those are the bigger ones. The smaller ones are on order. They should be in sometime next week. Didn't have them on hand. Picked up some stock to make the new governor linkage rods out of. I was going to make them, but then well, I'm not sure if I want to commit to the lengths of them, or do I want to wait until everything is dry fitted. According to the manual, they should be 12 1/4, I believe is what it says, which is about what this one is. That one's a little different, but I'm pretty confident that one has been modified. I don't know, so I put that on the back burner. I didn't finish that project. Since I got the bushings, I was going to start working on these throttle butterflies, but then I put that on the back burner for a couple of reasons. I was working on, so I got some O-rings to substitute for the original leather seals and these 2 grease cups for the water pump. So there's a leather seal here that's in there kind of permanently when they form this. It's kind of neat how they make this, the process. So it was a round shaft. They must turn it and form it, whatever. And then they put that leather seal on there, and then they had some type of a shear that comes down, shears off the 6 sides to turn it into a hex for your wrench, and then that little bit of a what do you want to call it, burr that it forms down, curls over to hold that leather seal in place. Pretty ingenious, really. Well, of course, that leather seal was bad. In the process of cleaning it up, it was even worse. So what I came up with, I don't know if I'll be able to open this with one hand. Nope, I won't. But I put a O-ring, finagled an O-ring down and over on that. And that should be a pretty good substitute for that leather seal. I think it'll work. These weren't quite the right O-rings. I probably should have got a little bit thinner one, but they're pretty hard ones. So actually what I did was, once I got it on there, I just took a nice sharp knife and I cut the OD of it a little bit to get it to be the size I wanted. Like so. Pretty good substitute for a leather seal. Let me know what you think. And then I got sidetracked on the carburetor a little bit because of the butterflies and the spacing. I got a message from a friend who had a suggestion on if I can't find this particular model of carburetor, the AX170, which is what the Allis used on their tractors. Some other models used, I guess, very similar carburetors, but he suggested a model, and so we're in the process of doing some confirming, you know, if the mounting hole spacing is the same, if the bores are the same. If all that is the same, it might work. It looked like one of the differences was, well, actually where I have it mounted, the little bosses where the bolt for holding the clutch linkage goes in. On his particular one, they must not use that. The bosses are there, but they're not machined, which that would be okay, because we could always machine that if the casting, if everything else is compatible. I think his linkages were a little bit different. That's no big thing. We could change them. So I'm going to take some measurements here, and I suppose I could just do it right now because you'll see this video. So it looks like the hole spacing is what, 2 and 11/16 on center. The bore itself is like 1 and 7/16 on top there. The bore, the intake bore, looks like about 2 inches on the inside, from here to here. Show what you're doing from here to here. So we'll have to kind of go from there and see if things are compatible. But again, if anybody has a Wheeler Shubler Carb AX170, let me know. I'm looking for one. So out of curiosity, I was just kind of see how many of these screws and fittings I could get loose. I've been letting them soak. Like I mentioned before, that's the secret. And I've got that, last time we talked, that one was stuck. I got that freed up. I've actually got most all these cracked loose. The trick is having the right screwdriver, have a selection. These hollow ground tip ones work, if I can get to focus. Come on. Work the best because they don't cam out as easily. And I got a whole selection of the different sizes. That's a big trick. If you have appropriate fitting screwdriver in your screws, you'll have a lot less chance of stripping things out, a lot less frustration. So it might take a little bit of, probably have enough here already just from talking, but a little bit of B-roll of how this all is together. So when I take it apart and I go to put it together months from now, I can reference this. The little mark, the little number 9 or whatever that is, number 6, number 9, is on the top of the butterfly there. When it's closed, that's the orientation of that linkage. I think most all this other stuff is pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to take this completely apart to make sure everything is clear and clean. Still have to figure out a good way to straighten this out. Let's get back to governor work here. This morning I got this last linkage removed from this governor housing. Somebody had been here before. It has been taken apart and turned 90 and drilled again. It's wore out. This is why we take everything apart and start over, so we know what we got. I got in some bearings for the governors. Those came in this week. Picked them up. Those are the small ones, 2 for each governor. I think we'll probably go up and fire up the sandblaster and get some of these parts cleaned up now. 1 governor's worth of parts sandblasted. So now we can start dry fitting things back together and seeing how everything fits. The only issue I've noticed so far is that there's a crack on that casting. I don't think that would be a huge deal, but same story. We'll see if the Michigan one is intact, and if so, we can use that one instead of this one. And if nothing else, we could practice fixing. We'll have lots of broken parts to learn our repair skills on. Yeah, things are looking pretty good here. Okay, I kind of checked everything over. Things are looking pretty good. Besides we previously talked about, we're going to be making new shafts and gears and whatever. I got to round up some hardware, some bolts for this yet. I'm not sure where that is at the moment. I have to dig through all my bags of bolts, get them located, and this will be waiting for parts then. We'll move on to the next thing. Rounded up some of the hardware. So this is all that's needed for one governor, and this is what I have of a second governor. So it looks like we're going to be making some bolts. Second governor, mostly all cleaned up. I didn't clean up the broken part. No sense in doing that yet. The only reason we'd ever need that is if we get desperate and have to fix this one, which I think could be done. If I didn't have the parts from the Michigan tractor, I think what we would have done, because this should be here, I think we would bore this out, make a new piece to put in there, and then probably pin it into place. I think would be an acceptable fix. So that would be a plan C if it comes to that. But anyway, got everything else cleaned up here. Pretty good. No issues besides what we've already talked about. So I think I'll box this stuff up and put it away on the shelf for now, because like we've talked, I'm basically at a stopping point with this until we get parts and make parts. There, all boxed up for now. As much as I want to tear into the next thing, whatever that may be, I think what we should probably do is go back to some of these unfinished projects, such as I got in all of these new races for the bearings for the transmission. I think we should probably go back to that, put those in so we can cross that off the list. These are the bearings for the fan assemblies. Could work on that a little bit. Try to maybe finish a few of these little things before we start on the next thing. It's so much more fun starting projects than it is finishing them, though. We got the band. We could work on gas tank straps. All kinds of stuff. You guys know the deal. But for now, I think I'll wrap this video up. Could work on clutches. We got the stuff for that now. I think I'll wrap this video up, and I'll see you guys next week. I appreciate you watching. If you like what you see, leave a comment and hit the old thumbs up button. See you guys later.